All right. Well, I'm going to jump forward now and invite us to listen into Gary LoMonaco, who's a good friend of ours. We've known Gary for a really long time. And he's going to be talking about innovations that have come forward before the pandemic, but also since. A lot of new stuff has been happening. And I'd love to hear your war stories, Gary. He's going to talk about solve your top 3 digital learning challenges, access, engagement, and rostering. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Gary. Thank you, Gary.
Hi, LeiLani. Thank you very much. It's been a while since I've seen you in
Yeah,
person, so it's good to see you again.
good to see you.
I think you just need to let me share. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. My name is Gary LoMonaco. I'm the Senior Director of Instructional Technology here at ClassLink. I'm going to take you through the platform, discuss what you're seeing here as our title, Access, Engagement, and Rostering. Before we get started, I just want to say that was a great presentation from New York City. We're right across the river, and we can definitely help you with the remote learning if that's something you want to look into in the future. I'm also going to leave a few minutes at the end. So if there's any questions for anybody, please let Doug or LeiLani know so that we can answer them. If not, I know LeiLani will come up with some questions, so that's great to hear. So let's go ahead and get started and talk about 3 very important factors, and especially in education right now. The first one is access. So with accessibility, ClassLink, what we offer is we offer a full suite of solutions. One of the first parts of that solution is our single sign-on and our application and file access platform. So what we do here is we utilize your existing environment that you have in your school district. By that, I mean your Active Directory, your Google environment. We then have those users use that same username and password to log into one location where they can now access all of your district's resources with a single sign-on. One click and you go, click and you go. And it's really that simple, right? We're trying to streamline this process. We've all been through a crazy year. I have 2 kids, thank God. They're not really in school yet. He just started pre-K, but I can see the troubles that the students and families had over that last year from some of my friends. So if we can help make that experience easier, make it easy for that student to access a resource, again, no matter where they are too. So please keep that in mind. ClassLink is a cloud-based solution. So we will work on any device from any location, as long as they have internet access, obviously. So once we get those users in, we can now start to track through the engagement, right? And I'm going to show you all this in person. I just kind of want to touch on the topics first. So while we have our users, our students, our teachers, our admins going in, accessing these resources, now we can actually track the engagement of those resources that we're putting out. Are they being used? If they are, what does that look like? And we'll take a look at some analytics, and we'll show you how we can help you and your district with that insight to those analytics. And then, of course, one of the big topics right now is about rostering, and it's really more about automation. So ClassLink does also offer an automation platform where we can automatically roster all of your resources from your student information system out to those third parties and vendors and publishers. Now, not only are we going to help you to automate that rostering, we're also going to help you automate account creation and provisioning. So together, in that rostering part is what we like to call here at ClassLink Digital Day One. So what that really means for you is a student will come to your school on Monday to register. They come back Tuesday, give that student a username and password, and they are ready to go. They can log in, they can access, they've been rostered into all of their classes. And that's really what ClassLink has to offer as a full solution, making access, engagement, and automation extremely easy for your school district. So since we are a single sign-on platform, right, we're talking about those resources and those applications that your users need to access. So with that, we have over 6,000 of these resources already built out for you in your platform. So they're there. They're ready for you to use. They're ready for you to access. If there's something more custom that you need, we can do that as well. Because when we talk about single sign-on, obviously, we speak every language. So what you're seeing on this slide, and I'm not sure how many technical people are really on the call versus instructional, so I'll kind of just flatline it here. What this really means is if you have a resource in your district that you want to now present to a user so they can have single sign-on access or even have it automatically rostered into that resource, we can do that for you. And by that, what you're seeing on this slide here is these are different formats of single sign-on and authentication that we work with. So it's really important for you as a school district to know that if you do come on board and become part of the ClassLink family, if there are resources that you are using that we do not have in the platform and you need to have there, we will work with your vendors and publishers at no additional charges. That is part of the ClassLink platform. You tell us what you have, what you need, and we will get that done for you. So enough with the slide for now. Let's take a look at what this looks like in action. So what you're seeing here, typical login screen. Let's say I'm at home or I'm in the classroom. I would open up my device. I would then land on a screen like this. If I'm using an iPhone or an iPad or a Droid or some type of smart device, I also have that option here to download those apps and access my resources that way as well. For the younger kids, K through 2, maybe special needs type students where maybe they can't type in a username and password yet because they just can't read or write yet. What we offer as well is our quick card. So again, access, right? Making it easy for these users to access these resources. With that quick card, that user can simply open up the device. They can go to the camera with that card. They can log right into the device, or we can bring them right into the ClassLink platform like you're seeing here. Either way, again, trying to streamline that access to your district's resources. Now, obviously over the pandemic, access became a big issue. I think New York kind of just talked about it a little bit as well, but that was a huge issue. For schools that came on board with ClassLink, that issue kind of went out the window. It was now easy for them to present these resources to their users, whether they were in the district or outside of the district. So really doesn't matter where the location was, they were still able to present a consistent experience to their users. I'm going to go ahead and log in with my Google account here. And of course, there we go. Now we also do offer multi-factor authentication. So any of you IT guys out there that are focused on security, we have multi-factor built in, but we can also integrate with things like Duo, Microsoft, Office 365. Now, if everyone could just close their eyes, I'll pick my image here and we'll get right into the ClassLink platform. It's a little slow right now, and I think that's because it's raining by me. But once that user is logged in now, this is where that customized learning experience is going to begin for them. So what does that mean? Well, not all of your students and teachers are the same, right? They don't access the same exact applications. They don't do the same things. They all have different resources that they need to access and different applications they need to work within. And that's really where ClassLink shines. When your users will log in, they're only going to see what they need to access. So if they need to get in the BrainPop, they're going to see it. If they're a 5th grader, they're going to see whatever 5th grade resources they need to access. If they're in 8th grade, whatever that 8th grader needs to access. And of course, your admins and teachers can have their own experience as well. What I'll also mention here is parents. You know, obviously this last 2 years has really been a strain on parents, but we also do offer a parent portal where you can make it even easier for your parents in your district to access your resources, whether it's a simple calendar link, if it's forms, whatever you need your parents to access, they can log in, they can have their own experience, and they can access all of those resources. So, accessibility. The student does not need to go all over the place. All they need to do is simply come in here, click on the resources and applications they need access to, and bam, they are ready to go. True single sign-on. I see it, I click it, I go. I see it, I click it, I go. And it's really that straightforward and that easy for them to access. Now, not only are we providing the ability for you to put applications out there and resources, we also want to help you organize these resources in a nice, easy way for users to find them. So we have things like folders. Maybe for all of your employees, you want to create a folder for employee resources. Go ahead and do that. A lot of our schools have library databases, which I'm sure all of you have as well. Well, we've helped a lot of our districts put those databases out here, so they are now accessed 24/7 through the platform. What we also do with schools like yourselves is we help to create an application library. So it almost becomes like an online store for your school district. Every application that we're going to build out and put into the platform, you will now have the ability to access through customized libraries. So maybe you want your high school students to see a certain set of applications, and then you want your partners or your teachers to see other sets of applications. You can create those custom resources for them to access here. Another great benefit of this as well is users can start to add their own resources. So I always like to use the example that I'm a science teacher and there's a bunch of science blogs out there and I really like to use them in class. Well, I can go ahead and enter all of that information here. And once I do that, it would now show up as an application for me to access. Simply click it and I'm into that resource. So talk a little bit more about engagement and remote learning. So for those schools that are lucky enough to be in person, this will work as well, of course. And that didn't go through. So let me try that again. There we go. So what My Classes is going to do, and this became really popular for our schools, obviously, during the pandemic. It will show your users, whether they're a student and teacher, their classes and their periods for the day. What it's also going to show them is what applications and what resources they use when they go into that class. Well, we go a little bit further. Right now, keep in mind, I am logged in as a teacher, so I have a little more access. If I was in as a student, what you're seeing right here would be called something My Backpack, and they would still have access to their applications and their classes. But as a teacher now, I can engage with my students. I can push out announcements. So if there's something I need them to know, hey, there's a quiz on Friday, if you need help studying, anything like that, I can push that information to them. What I can also do is push out an application or a resource from the library. So if there is a good resource in our district and I want to make sure that my students are using it, I can go into that library, I can find that resource, and I can push it out to my users. Now, we also do offer discussion boards in here. This is a conversation we can have if we go further. If you're using Google and you didn't want to use this, that's fine. We simply just will turn that off for you. Users don't even know it exists. But now we're getting into more of the engagement side of My Classes. That teacher can see all of the students that are in that classroom. If they want, what they can do is they can click on the analytics of that student and they're going to see, what is that student doing? Are they accessing applications? How much time are they spending in these resources? And that's going to help that teacher with that student. Do I need to work with Tommy to make sure he has a little more focus in math or in science? What do I need to do? You're going to start to see that usage here. What this is also going to do, especially if you're in a remote learning environment or hybrid, this is going to show you when that user is logged in. So did that user log in today? And if they did log in, well, where did they spend their time? How much time did they spend in the resources and how can we break that down? So if we look here at Niasia, she spent over 5 hours. Well, I can go into Niasia and see how that work was done. Almost 5 hours in reflex math, so she must be really good at math. A little bit in the Google Drive and a little bit in iReady. But as you can see here, it really gives that insight to that student for that teacher. And that's just the beginning of engagement. In a moment, I'll go into some full analytics on the back end, and I'll show you how we can take that deeper dive and how we can help your district with, are we really using what we're paying for? Should we use this money for something else? Do we have that data to back it up? And I'll show you that in a moment. But not only are users going to be able to access these applications, they're also going to be able to get to all of their files. Now, we understand some schools are just Google, some schools are Active Directory in Google. And if you are using multiple locations, this is going to be great for your district. It's a one-stop shop for all of your storage locations. Your users do not need a VPN at this point. They're already logged in. They're already authenticated into your resources. So all they have to do is click on My Files, and they will see your school network, which in most cases, if any of you are at work and you have a home drive or if you have a shared drive or anything like that, that's what you're seeing here. Those are usually only accessible once you're in school, unless you're using a VPN. So if you're using that VPN, you can get rid of that for your users and make it even easier for them. Obviously, besides my school network, I can also get into my Google Drive and my online resource. If you're a school district that's using multiple other locations as well, we can work with you on that, and we can help you set up things like Dropbox, OneDrive, 365, whatever you have in your district, we will work with you to get that done. So that's really the first part of the user experience. Now what I want to do is I want to get a little bit more into that engagement, and I'm going to show you some deeper analytics. And this is going to allow you and your team to see what's going on at a district level, a building level, or even at a granular user level, depending on what type of data you need to know. Now, I know LeiLani said some of the stories. a lot of our vendors, I'm sorry, a lot of our customers and clients, they were able to use these analytics during the pandemic to see what was happening in their environments. Were their students accessing these resources? If they were, what was the average time spent in it? And was it really working for them the way that they want it to work for them? So with the ClassLink analytics, you're going to see at an overview what is happening in the district. Are we getting that usage and that buy-in? And you can see that by the logins per day, month, or year. We can also help you track the historical data. So if you want to track year after year to see if usage is going up, is it going down? You know, where do we have some slow time and maybe do some projects? Well, historically, this time of year is slow. Now, most of you probably already know that, but to have it backed up with data, it's going to make that decision even easier. Now, not only are we going to show you who's logging in, this is really where it gets fun for the school districts. Now they can break down every single resource that they've put out there for a user to access, and they can see the usage for it in one location. So go ahead and pick your custom time range, date range that you're looking for. And we know that during this period, these are our most used applications. Well, look at that. Canvas has over 7 million launches. Well, you know what? I need to look at that a little bit more and really get an idea of what's happening in Canvas. I can click into that Canvas application. I can see how many of my users are actually using it, how many times they're clicking it, how much total time is spent at a district level. I can also tie value to this. So when the schools come on board, what they're going to do is they're going to add all of these resources. Then they're going to put in what they pay for these resources. They're also going to be able to keep track. Are all of our schools using it, or is it just individual schools? And you can break that down for your records for later use. You can also tie in what you're paying for it, your license structure, and so on. Any PD or any other funding resources that you need to add. Now, once you do that, what that's going to do is that's going to bring that information over here to a cost report, where you now have one location to see what is our total spend that we're putting out there as far as resources are concerned, especially during those board meetings when they start hitting you with questions. What do we have? What are we paying for it? How many licenses? What does that look like? Do we have usage? Well, you can now pull up this one location here, and you can go through all of that data and give them all of those answers. If you're an admin, we also have an app for that. So if you want to download the ClassLink Analytics app as well, you can have that on your smart device. Another cool feature, though, is, you know, many of you have multiple schools, which means multiple instructional staff, multiple principals. You can actually break down each individual school and give them their own dashboard, so they can stay up to date on what's happening in their environment. And this is another part that was very useful for school districts over the pandemic. They were actually able to see what schools were really keeping up and where they needed to focus a little bit more attention as far as getting users into resources, accessing applications, and you know, all that important stuff, right? During a pandemic, it's all about accessibility. We can also start to tell you things like, well, how many of those users in that school are logging in? And when they do log in, how much time is being spent at that school on these resources? So some pretty granular information there. Now we want to get to an individual user level. I can tell you from the top, now we want to go to the bottom, and we would just want to talk about one individual person. We can tell you that information, and I'm just going to pull up a fake account here because this is real data, so I can't really show you some of their names and what they're accessing. But what this will show you is when that user's logged in, when that user did log in, what applications and what resources did they access. So think about, you know, a parent-teacher conference where maybe that teacher needs to explain to the parent that, hey, you know, Johnny isn't really doing what he needs to. Now they have the information. They can pull this. They can show that to the parent. Whoever needs to see it, they now have that data on that student. We can also show you where that student, how much time that student is spending on a daily basis in all of the resources that you're putting out there. All right, so that covers the first two parts, and that's really about the accessibility and the engagement. Now, we got about 10 minutes left, so what I want to talk about now is something that we call rostering and automation. I'll touch on the rostering part first, and then we'll talk about some OneSync, which is our account provisioning, if there's time. Now that we have all these applications and all of these resources that we're putting out there, one of the biggest headaches for the schools now is, okay, now that we have that, we need to roster from our SIS out to BrainPop, out to HMH, out to Pearson. We need to get them those rosters. Now, A lot of the schools that we worked with, they were pulling them manually through CSV files. They had to filter them. They had to edit that. Then they had to send it off. Then they got 5 new students. So then they had to do it all over again. So what the ClassLink roster server is going to do is it's going to help to automate that rostering process. Out of your student information system, it's going to pull all of that roster information. You are then going to set that up, and you are going to send that out to those vendors and those publishers through that automated process. The ClassLink roster server is based off of the One Roster standard. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It is a standard out there in the EdTech world. And what it really means is it's an open standard, which means vendors and publishers can use it. Schools can use it. They can expect the same template no matter what vendor or what publisher they're working with. So really making that ability to get those rosters out of your environment and over to your vendors in an automated fashion. And that's what we call ClassLink roster server. And it's the first part, actually, I should say, it's really the second part of what we call Digital Day One. The first part of our Digital Day One product is something called OneSync Server. And this really starts off the whole process. So what is OneSync? Well, OneSync is the account automation creation platform. So if you do have that new student, that new teacher that comes into the district, you're going to put them into your SIS or your HR platform. Well, the first thing that we can do from there is generate that user account into your different environments, your Active Directory environment, your 365, your Google environment. We can even add them to the groups and give them everything they need access to. Once that occurs, users can start to log in. Now, once those users are added to your groups in your environment, AD or Google, those groups have access to applications and resources. So now you're starting to see an automated provision going on here. The account gets created, the user gets added to a group, that group has access to resources and applications. And now the second part of that is where that roster server comes into play. Now that we know who the user is, now we need to populate that data and send it over to our vendors and publishers. And that really completes the circle of our Digital Day One and our automation. Now, to leave it off before I open it up for LeiLani, I went over what we do, what it looks like, and how we can help your district. But let me tell you a little bit about who we are in the space. So we've been in the educational technology space now for over 23 years. We are focused strictly in education. We have over 14 million users that utilize the platform, which is over 19, it's actually over 2,000 and something now, school systems. So we are international, and we also do higher ed. So if you're in a district where you need to have multiple languages in the platform, we have you covered as well. And if not, you let us know, and we will get those in there. When it comes to our statewide deployment in K-12, we have the state of Iowa and the state of Delaware. Oh, sorry, I just saw a question there. Okay. And we work with over 400 vendors, which we are constantly building out partnerships with. Why? So we can make the experience even better for you, your students, and your parents that are involved in the district. So LeiLani, what I want to do there is open it up, I guess, if there's any questions, comments, jokes, stories, and then we can go from there. LeiLani, while you're coming on, I also want to know that, I'm in Bergen County, so I'm really excited that if you guys come to Bergen County next year, I live there. So.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it too. They were really disappointed when we're coming this year. We were like, we thought we weren't allowed to, like Oregon. Like we thought you would tell us no, so we didn't even really try. Yeah, so they're really excited about having us back there, and they have some awesome programs. So it should be a really good program when we come out.
Definitely.
Yeah, all of the events by Learning Council will be live except for the Northwest, Seattle, Portland. They don't really allow outsiders in at all. So let's ask you some questions.
Sure.
The thing is, you guys stepped up as a company, and you scrambled like when the pandemic started.
We did.
From what I know, we're now at like what, 96% of all students have devices. It took off. 50% of the market joined the tech fray. Mm-hmm. Do you have any stories to tell about that? Like what happened behind the scenes?
Well, what happened was, just like you said, when the pandemic began, a lot of schools were stuck. And I think New York kind of touched on it. They got through it, they worked it, and they got it going. But some of the schools that aren't as big as New York City, they don't have that team behind them to get it going. So Once they were into that situation where now what? Now we're fully remote. We don't have the device in everyone's hand. The first thing they had to do was go out and get devices. The second thing they did was they reached out to us because they knew that from their colleagues around them, and a lot of it came by referral and, hey, you guys need to look at this because when it comes to accessing them, they're going to help you. So once they got those devices, we started working with them on setting up the environment for them. So a lot of their transition for those people that got the devices, then talked to us, it was pretty easy for them to move forward once they really had to dive down into it. For the schools that were unsure, that were doing one-to-one with devices, we still provided them the ability to access their resources from home, even if they didn't have a district-owned device. So we definitely, like you said, we definitely scrambled at the beginning because we wanted to help schools with accessing those resources, whether they had the device or not. So we worked really hard with helping them do that. In some cases, we'd spend overtime making sure that, hey, if you need this, our team is there and we're going to get it going. But yeah, like you said, it really came down to devices and how easy is that transition. If they had the devices, it was definitely easier for them. But if not, we helped kind of bridge that gap going forward because of the cloud solution.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things I want to mention is that, being Learning Council research, we're hearing the really big companies out of the commercial side sniffing around trying to do single sign-on now in K-12 because it's such a large market. But the thing about ClassLink that I think is really amazing is it's the only thing you do, K-12. And you've already connected some 7,000 apps, even though those companies are now consolidated and makes the number look smaller. I think maybe 6,800 now or something like that. It's really because big companies have been eating up the small companies. And that's really the only reason, right? But really, it's all you do, right?
Right. 100%. It's all about single sign-on and automation. We've actually, over the years, as you know from the beginning, we started with single sign-on. Then we got into that automation part, which is the rostering part of it. Why? Because it's such an important part of the education space. You need to get those rosters out. So for the schools that are using the Google Classrooms, that's kind of what helped us get into that space to make sure that we can get that data out of your environments to those vendors in that secure fashion. So all about accessibility.
Yeah. And then all our EduJedi meetings this year, we've been talking about the quality and the next level of true digital learning, which, no one's giving up their devices now. So we're digital forever now, everywhere. Yep. So the next level up is how instructional people are concerned about the quality of the navigation.
Yep.
Because
go ahead, LeiLani, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And I was going to say to that before I know we're almost done. The reason why we, like you said, we like to focus on that. And one of the great things about ClassLink is we work with those instructional people. So if they have a question, a concern, or maybe they even have a way that they think it would work better, that's one thing that's great about the ClassLink company is they will sit with them and listen to them. And if it makes sense and it's a good way to do it, our team will implement that. And that's how a lot of our platform, and I'm sure you've seen it, has grown over the last, I've been here almost 8 years. Over the last 8 years, that's how it's grown, by educators and instructional folks just like yourself coming to us with a concept, an idea, maybe a better way to do things. And to be honest with you, that's how the automated rostering began. A school district in Florida needed it. We worked with them. Sorry, go ahead.
I think I know who that was. That was Orlando, Orange County, right? That was Orange.
True.
Yeah, Orange County. I've met a lot of your people. They're all former educators. They're not salespeople.
That's right.
So that makes it more comfortable to work with you guys. Yeah, so really awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. It's good to hear your update. Yeah, Gary, looking forward to seeing you next
Appreciate
year.
It.
Yeah. All right. Good to have you.
All right, bye, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to get into, if anybody has any questions, type them in now and I'll get Gary back on. Gary, stay on for another 5 minutes just in case somebody has questions for you. Just put them in chat. Like if you're like, Gary, that was wild. Please call me or whatever. And I want to talk about this. Yeah, just put it in chat.